This is Coogan Cassius for IFL-TV. We're in Brentwood here in Essex at the Matchroom headquarters. With me, I've got the governor of this place, the actual governor of this place, not the pretender, Mr. Barry Hearn. How are you, Barry?
I'm really good, Coogs. Yeah. Thanks for coming down. Beautiful day.
Beautiful day indeed. I thought it was been a while since we had a proper catch-up, so I thought I'd come here and pick your brains over certain things. May 31st, FROCH GROVES 2. Yeah. Let's step away from that a sec. I want you to talk to me about the direct comparison between... Let's compare the two fights from FROCH GROVES 1, Benn Eubank 1, 1990, NEC Birmingham. Yeah. What do you remember from that, as in the hype-wise around that fight?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the similarities, there's real personal animosity between the protagonists, you know. I mean, Benn was such a warrior. Eubank was undefeated. This is going back to November 1990. NEC Birmingham, huge hype because of the question marks about Eubank. Benn was the favourite, so very similar to FROCH GROVES 1. You know, a lot of people didn't think that Eubank could beat Benn. I did. I thought he had the style to beat him. And it was a classic fight, 9th round stoppage. So the similarities are very, very close, because obviously Groves went into the first fight as a big underdog, you know, booed into the ring, cheered out of the ring. FROCH had a wake-up call with the right hand in the first round. You know, a lot of comparisons on where they were in their respective careers, and both in their own way came of age that night. And Benn Eubank, Benn went off and regrouped. Eubank did a massive TV deal, made a load of money, and his career then was up and running. I think the similarity with Groves is the casual fan didn't really know that much about George Groves. After the first fight, they know a lot about George Groves. So there was no real controversy in the first one. It was a 9th round stoppage, pretty legitimate stoppage. It was a great, great fight. So there wasn't the controversy that we had in FROCH GROVES 1. And obviously controversy sells tickets and creates more public interest. And that brought us on to, you know, after the first Benn Eubank, the clamour was there eventually for the second fight, which was at Old Trafford a few years later. 47,000 people. Big fight. Now, of course, the controversy with the first FROCH GROVES meant that we had to do it straight away to maximise the commercial exploitation of the interest in that fight, because it is a mega fight. Now, which is the bigger? You know, it's difficult. In the days of Benn Eubank, you have to understand this was on terrestrial TV, so these fights were getting between 10 and 18 million viewers. You know, a fight on Sky wouldn't get 1 million because it's a pay channel. Obviously, this next one may get that and some more. But there's a big difference in public awareness. You know, everybody from the kids in the street knew about Benn Eubank because of ITV coverage. Today, it's a much harder sell in terms of trying to establish that type of following on a pay subscription station. So you have to utilise a lot more social media access to actually spread the word. So bigger fight in public perception, probably Benn Eubank 2. Bigger fight in commercial terms, bigger fight in crowds, without question, FROCH GROVES 2 is much bigger than Benn Eubank 2. But does it really matter? They're both great fights. One was classics, and I think this one's going to be a classic as well.
It took just under 3 years for the Benn Eubank rematch to happen. We're in a different sort of situation here, where this fight is happening 7-8 months after the original one. If this fight had been left longer, say it happened not as long as 3 years, but if it happened, say, in another year's time or something. Don't forget, FROCH is getting older, and towards the end of his career. So what does that do? How big is the fight because it's so soon after the first one, which is only in November?
Yeah, I mean, we live in the age now of immediate action. You know, everybody wants everything straight away. They don't want to wait. In the days of Benn and Eubank, there were alternatives. You know, there was Sky Television, there was ITV, you know, there was other broadcasters out there. And America was strong, so Benn had a chance to regroup in the States and win back a world title, come back. There were choices. Today, there's not really that many choices. If you've got to make money, you have to be on Sky. There isn't any other way to make money. I mean, you can make a living, but you can't get rich. And commercial terms now, I think everyone's aware, fighters now are different animals than they were in the days of Benn and Eubank. They've all got their own lawyers, they've all got their own accountants, they've all got their own advisors. And it all points to doing the biggest deal as quick as possible. In the age of uncertainty we live in, we don't know if you don't do a fight whether we'll ever see it. I mean, will we ever see Pacquiao and Mayweather? We've been talking about it for years and years and years. We've been waiting. And it may be one of those fights that, for one reason or another, doesn't happen. Sadness for me is I never did Benn Eubank 3, which was my only sadness from that. So now, FROCH GROVES had to happen while it was hot. If you'd have left it a year, it would have, to some extent, although the anticipation would still be there amongst fight fans, from the general public's perception, you have to strike while the iron is hot. And that's why, obviously this fight's happening straight away.
Apart from the 4 fighters we've been talking about, what they do in the ring, how important is their personalities and how do you compare their personalities? FROCH and GROVES, obviously more people are aware about now. Back then, obviously the charismatic Eubank, Nigel, how does it compare?
I like, all sport is a soap opera. People get carried away with the purest side of boxing. He's got a nice jab, he's got a right cross. The man in the street don't care about that. What they care about is the size of the personality and the ego, the battle of the egos. With Benn and Eubank, you had someone off the street who could have a tear-up better than anybody I've ever seen was Nigel Benn. You knew what he said on the can. He's going to come out weighing in a load. With Eubank, you had like this Terry Thomas almost cartoon character of idiosyncrasies and eccentricities that hadn't happened in boxing. It'd been a long time since, I remember in the days of Ali, there was a guy called Gorgeous George who was a wrestler, and he was massive, and everyone knew Gorgeous George. He weren't that good, but he had a personality that extended beyond just the ring. And Benn and Eubank both had that, and that attracted an audience outside of normal boxing, which is what you're always aimed to do, the casual fans, the sort of fans that go to watch a Klitschko fight in Germany. When I went to Klitschko's fight with Sosnowski, 64,000 people there. I was talking to them. Hardly any of them had been boxing before. They went because it was an occasion. And Benn and Eubank created an occasion. So the similarity now is you've got 2 very different personalities in both fights. And FROCH and GROVES are entirely different people. Carl is absolutely focused on earning money, providing for his family, and he accepts the pain that goes with the job. So he drives himself like a real professional. His problem is the clock's ticking. He's getting older. But he's built up a reputation over his last 7, 8, 9, 10 fights of being the warrior that goes anywhere, fights anyone, and he's come through, with Eddie's help, I have to say, from anonymity to superstardom. If you look back where Carl FROCH was 2.5, 3 years ago, he was boxing tough fights, not getting enough money and not getting anywhere near the profile. So now he's been elevated. GROVES is a fascinating character because he's the little cheeky, nasty little chappie that lives somewhere and on the street, you think he can look after himself. He's got another side to him, He's quite intelligent. He's quite articulate. He's got a little smirk on his face as if he knows the answer to every question before you ask the question. Maybe he thinks he's brighter than he is. Maybe that's the case. Maybe he's just bright. Now, the question there is, came into a fight as an underdog, but as a sort of good-looking young kid, he beat James DeGale, so he had got some profile, but he was there. He was a natural successor, and he probably is a natural successor, whether he wins on 31st of May or not. He's 24, 25, 26, something like that. He's at the age where his career is going to go forward. We don't know how far, and that's what makes the fight so exciting. But again, two very different personalities. And I think you need that in any sport. You need to have hero, villain. You need to have good guy, bad guy, old guy, young guy, black guy, white guy, whatever. It doesn't make any difference. You need something that crystallises support and makes people have an opinion on it. If they've got an opinion, even if it's wrong, that opinion will give you media exploitation and it will drive the numbers forward. And at the end of the day, all of this, sadly for the purists out there, is about money. It's about stamping yourself, making enough money in this stupid game of boxing, crazy game where you try and bash someone up and they're trying to bash you up. I mean, it's a prehistoric sport. And the only justification is it changes lives and makes serious amount of money for the good of the families of the people involved. So as a personality stuff, this is going to, and these personalities will continue to evolve. George at the moment, I think, is ahead on the mind games. FROCH is probably ahead on the steely determination. It's an interesting battle. Which one do you go for?
I'll talk to you about the fan bases of, obviously, I was a bit young for when Benn Eubank first happened, and even the second fight I was only about 9. But tell me about the fan bases that they had, and was it more about their fan bases, or was it more that they'd created this hype between themselves that everyone just wanted to see the fight pretty much like this?
Yeah, I think the hype was the winner. I mean, you know, it was some brutal press conferences, some harsh exchange of words, no fisticuffs, no handbags, but you could feel the tension in the room when Benn and Eubank were together. I remember Eubank turned around to Benn at one interview and said, "Nigel, we both know that you're going to end up as a doorman on a nightclub." And this is a guy who's fighting for a lot of money. You know, to say that to someone face up was like a brutal comment. And Nigel's just festering. In a way, see, if you go back to the great fights and you look back on, right, Liston Ali, where Ali dominated press conferences, a bit like Eubank dominated. Liston just had this simmering feud, in this burning desire to actually kill him. Ali Fraser was exactly the same, you know. Benn wasn't so coherent at press conferences, but he had this aura of destruction around him, which created the recipe for a clash of personalities. And I think you've got, with Groves and FROCH, the same thing. You know, different people like people for different reasons. So fight fans love the swashbuckling Nigel Benn style, come out all guns blazing. Other people were enamoured with this eccentricity, this weird behaviour of a guy that actually could fight, but didn't fight in the same explosive style, was more of a technician. And, you know, the great lion styles make fights. And that was a battle between out-and-out warrior power and a technician that was equivalent to a surgeon taking you to pieces over a period of time. So if you switch that, where they're not similar is both Groves and FROCH have power, and they're not the surgeon types. I mean, boxing-wise, they can both obviously fight. Technically, they both have flaws. And question marks over Groves' stamina or his chin, probably a little harsh. Question marks on FROCH's technique. You know, being caught so square in the first round last time's not a good thing to have, you know. That's a different angle of trying to analyse what's likely to happen. I think FROCH has built up the respect of people because of how hard he's had it, and he's earned every single penny that he's earned the hard way. And I think the newcomers to boxing, the wider audience, are warming to Groves as the new kid on the block who's a slight outsider but may just topple the king of the mountain. You know, so, you know, you take a side. I don't know anyone who doesn't have an opinion about it, and of course none of us know what's going to happen until the bell rings on May the 31st. But the similarities were still there. You know, you polarise support based on your own personality and how much you've been involved in the soap opera media exploitation of those fighters. So if you're a rough, tough guy and you fancy your chances, you're a Nigel Benn fan. And if you're a rough, tough guy and you come from nothing, you fancy FROCH. If you're a purist and say, well, technically this guy's a better boxer and what an interesting character, he's weird, you go with Eubank. And if you're someone who goes, well, this little kid's come off, I don't know where George lives, but let's say he's a South London boy.
Hammersmith, I think.
Hammersmith. Well, so he's a South London-ish boy, Southwest. He's gone through enough to earn his chance, and actually, I can imagine quite a lot of people warming to him and saying, "And we hope he does it," because people like to see. And I'm not saying Groves is a massive underdog because he's not. It's a very close fight, but people like to see an upset. I mean, the fact that he walked into horrendous boos on the first fight and walked out to cheers. And they got beat. But people warm to people that can cause an upset because we all like to see Manchester United get beat. You know, we all like to see, I don't know, the favourite get beat, don't we? Because we're a nation and a world of outsiders because we're all not favourites in our own world. So therefore we like the underdog to win. This is not so much of an underdog champion fight because it's a pretty level fight. But the attitudes of the people are, you know, if you're a floater, you probably go for the kid that's going to be the future in the few years ahead, you know? Because you know, with FROCH, you know what you're going to get. But at the same time, Father Time ticks on. And it's a very funny thing when you go to your garage sometimes, you turn the ignition on and there's no petrol, and you never knew the day before that you didn't have any petrol in the car. Everyone runs out of time. So the next shift will be the nostalgia market, and people will swing back to FROCH and say, no, but I can identify with him because I'm old as well. You know, in a sporting sense, FROCH is old. But how long does he have left? A year? 2 years? Absolute maximum, maybe less. And so people sometimes move to that. So it's an interesting menu of different emotions that will bring different levels of support to fighters. On the night, it'll be 50-50 down the middle, I should think.
Absolutely. I just want to say, I'm pretty sure George is from Hammersmith. If he's not, I'm sure there'll be people tweeting me in later on. But I think he's West London. From a promoting point of view, let's talk about Eddie having to put on countless shows through the year, some easier to sell than others. So when it comes to the promoting side of this, back then compared to now, is it a case of the fight is selling itself? Is there still work to do?
Every big fight is so much easier than a small fight. Driving support, you know, you can't force people out of their houses to buy a ticket and leave the comfort of their own home to go and watch something unless they want to go. So the big fights are a lot easier to sell than the small fights. But of course, logistically, there's a load more problems with coping with big crowds and big security problems and the technical issues that go with it. So as far as, I mean, this fight couldn't have been easier for Eddie, could it? I mean, he's done the work. You see, you do the work before. It's like, you know, when you build a house, you don't build it without foundations, do you? You put the foundations in first, you put the house on top of it. And actually, once you've got it stable, you've got a house. So exactly with a fight like this, you know, the foundations were built. Obviously, the controversy of the first fight and the careers of both fighters leading up to that fight. So they're now national figures. You know, let's be honest, they are national figures. The interest is amazing. So therefore, it's quite easy. You know, you go on sale. We sold 63,000 tickets in 52 minutes, which was phenomenal. I thought if we sold 30,000 the first week, I would have been quite pleased with that. So it shows you the size of the fight, and it shows you that that side of the job is done. You know, there's another 20,000 tickets going on sale next week. They'll go in a nanosecond. You know, so that's easy, and that's in respect of how you've built the fight leading up to the fight. And that's always been the same, whether it's Benn, Eubank or whatever. Anticipation makes it an easier show to sell. The exploitation is different now because pay-per-view. So, okay, you've sold your tickets. You can't create any more. You can't make any more money for the fighters. That's gone. So where do you make your money? Well, you look at your sponsorships, which is done. Then you look at your overseas syndication, which is pretty well done. Now, the big one is how many people pay Sky money, which goes to the boxers as well. How big is that? And that's the big job. And that's the job where, having done the work on the tickets, now you've got to drive audience across the country to be motivated enough on a Saturday night to pay their whatever it is to Sky to watch a fight. And that means you've got to put that fight so deeply in their mind that they're looking forward to it. You need to create a diary event. Someone who writes down in their diary or whatever, May 31st, I can't get there, I can't get a ticket, I'm not going to miss it. So you're either going to go down your pub, your club, where there's going to be big screens, or you sit in your home, either on your own with your old lady, with some mates and a beer, you make a night of it. It becomes, you create a mini occasion of your own for those unfortunate enough not to get there for the big occasion. And the job now for Eddie and his team is to make sure that everyone knows the timings, the undercard, the fights, the personalities of the boxers, the controversy around everything, and to keep it in the public perception right up to probably 7 o'clock on that night, so that you don't miss one single potential customer. And that's how you maximise the commercial return to the fighters. Because there's one big difference, really massive difference, between the fights of Benn and Eubank and those era and the fights of today. On those really big fights, people like me, Warren, Duff, in a way, we were like slave owners, looking back on it. We were also entrepreneurs. We took gambles. So we would sign a fight, a big fight, and we would take a big financial risk. We'd guarantee the purses, we got to guarantee the show, before we knew how many tickets we sold, what the revenue was likely to be. And sometimes, and Benn Eubank fight, certainly Benn Eubank 2 is a great example, sometimes you have it off, Cougs. Sometimes you pitch it just right. Now, does that mean you got the fighters too cheap? Maybe. But you took a chance on it and no one else would. So, okay, that's a risk in any business. Sometimes you got it wrong and you done your brains. That was the boxing promotion business 20, 30 years ago. Today is entirely different. The movement now has been where the athlete takes control. So effectively, we as a promotion company have no risk. We work for the fighters. Our job is to maximise every stage of revenue, to minimise every stage of cost, and to return to those fighters the maximum amount of money, of which we take a percentage. So we have no risk, but we also don't have the massive results if you get it right, because the fighters own the show. And that is, I think, the best result in professional boxing that I can see. No more do promoters, or can promoters, get accused of ripping off fighters, taking all the money. They're taking the punches. All these stories, most of them untrue, by the way. I mean, you've only got to look around boxing promoters and ask yourself, how many of these promoters have really made money? The answer is, not many of them, if any. Because the records are out there, how's Frank doing? How did Maloney do? How did Hattons do? How did we do in those early stages, And it just doesn't work out that you make money. Now, you become the new promoter world is you are a service industry to the fighters themselves. We provide the service that makes them the money. Every figure is checked by the boxer's own representatives. Every contract is seen by the boxer's own representatives. That's the biggest difference. It's a swinging sport. It's not just in boxing. It's in lots of sports where entrepreneurs used to take a risk. Now they don't take the risk, but they don't get the massive reward. But that's okay because it's become a proper business. Some people accuse me of being an accountant. I always put my hand up and say guilty as charged because I like to run successful businesses. And I understand that sometimes that means making consistent profits over years rather than having a big touch and then a disaster. I don't like disasters. So I'm very relaxed now that we are part of the boxing scene in terms of providing facilities and opportunities to fighters. And at the same time, when they reach the land of honey, and very few of them make it, I think they deserve all the money anyway. Because no one hits me in the face. Well, apart from the old lady.
Just going back to the ticket sales, obviously, for this FROCH fight. The tickets went on sale on the Monday. On the Sunday, I had countless phone calls about people, how do we get tickets, blah, blah, blah. So I sort of sent them the link, if you like, for the thing. But what I did tell everyone is, quite silly, that I said, don't worry, you'll get a ticket. There's like 60,000 seats going on. So I've told everyone, there's no way you won't get a ticket, because I didn't anticipate it, 60,000 being sold in an hour. So everyone was like, and then they all got a call, more or less, like later on that day to say, like, they've gone, but hopefully another however many thousand tickets are going on sale.
I mean, I think you can never really judge the response of the British public. If something just captures the imagination, it breaks all the rules. So this is the biggest fight I think's ever been staged in this country. I don't, the early figures pre-war where people were just guessing on how many people were there. This is a real over 80,000 capacity, and it's got the imagination, and it breaks the rules because Cougs, I've been in this business for 30 years, and I thought it would sell, 30,000 tickets in the first week. It sold 63,000 tickets in 52 minutes. And I was basing it on past precedent. I remember Eubank Watson was indoors at Earls Court. 10,000 people, sold out, and a very, very controversial ending as well. People thought that Watson had won the fight, and the back page, Robson robbed. The same, almost the same, but also, I think 12 million viewers on ITV saw it. So that was a big fight. And I thought, right, let's do it again straight away, exactly the same as Eddie's done with FROCH Groves. And we went to that terrible night in White Hart Lane in Tottenham for the rematch. And we sold 14,000 tickets. We sold an extra 4,000 tickets with all the controversy and all the publicity and a massive terrestrial following. So why? And it just shows you, it speaks volumes for how big this fight is. But, along with that comes all the frustration, the scalpers are out there, the ticket touts and all this. Usually these are things that are said by people that didn't get a ticket. They're annoyed. But, you also got to understand, again, the world we live in. There are ticket touts and scalpers out there. But also, there's a huge number of members of the general public that have sussed out, if they get 6 tickets, they can put them on eBay themselves. And you just can't stop it because there's just so many people. But the demand is there, and that shows, I thought the ticket prices were right up there as much as I wanted to see charged, and in honesty, we could have charged twice the ticket price, probably. But I think it had to be, for the size of the fight and the fans, you had to make it accessible to everybody. And again, if you're thinking about 80,000, in our lifetime, we may never see a fight with 80,000 people buying a ticket. So it's not really just the ticket price. You're going to be at an occasion. If you're sitting right up at the back, you're going to spend a lot of time, a bit like at the darts, really. You're going to spend a lot of time looking at a screen, aren't you? Because they're little tiny guys in the middle of the thing. But the occasion, the noise, the roar, will go through you. You get this rush of adrenaline. You don't have to fight to get rushes of adrenaline. You feel that you're at something special, something unique, something that you'll look back and say, I remember where I was. I remember where I was in 1966 when England won the World Cup. I'll never forget that. I remember where I was on the day that JFK got shot. This is sort of silly things go through your mind like that. Things are they're called memories. And sport creates memories, and it creates days that I enjoyed that. It's a strange feeling, whether it's the Olympics, whether it's the football, whether it's the cricket. And boxing is that unique. Everyone knocks boxing, it's old-fashioned, it's dangerous. People don't go anymore. The fights are rubbish, mismatches, too many belts. But it's that one sport that can create an evening quite above anything else you could ever encounter. I mean, and that's what keeps boxing alive, those type of evenings. Now, where we go from here is more interesting to me because I think we're creating, I mean, Eddie's got a strategy. And the fascinating thing about boxing is I always thought I was the best promoter. And obviously I've got to tip my hat to Fast Car. But when you, in honesty, if you've got the best boxers, you can be a shit promoter and you're still number one. You know? If you've got the best TV station, you don't get away with being a shit promoter because they know the business. And this is really why Eddie's, you mustn't be complacent, and I don't think he will be, certainly not while I'm still giving him the odd dig. You know, you must value the assets you've got. And with Eddie, has got obviously a very strong stable of boxers. But the biggest asset in a way is he has Sky TV. That puts him in such a powerful position while he has the support of Sky and while he's delivering value to Sky. Because without them, there would be boxing for the purists, but for the general public, there'd be nothing. And I think boxing's always been a cyclical business. I see the sport going up and up, almost vertical at the moment, because I see the ratings on Sky going up and up. I see the ticket sales going out faster and faster. I see the social media getting more and more important, creating this community of fight fans. When you think that Eddie tweeted, if you want advance notification of when the fight tickets go on sale, send me your email address. 35,000 email addresses in a day. Those people didn't send you an email address because they wanted a birthday card. They sent because they want tickets for a fight. So the audience is out there, but in this competitive world, you've got to make sure you give them the biggest shows, the best experience, as much value for money as possible, as many real fights as possible, and create that excitement, because it's a bit like a snowball going down a mountain. It gathers more and more snow around it. It gathers momentum. And I think the fight game, at this moment in time, is gathering momentum. And the great thing, as I explained, because the fighters now are in more control of their own destiny financially, we will be creating superstars beyond imagination, I believe, in the next 2 or 3 years. The pay-per-view market, the international exploitation, this is a changing world. And whilst we think the superstars today, FROCH and GROVES, for example, both going to earn millions of pounds, and good luck to them, I don't think we're scratching the surface of where Eddie can take this game in the next 2 or 3 years, because we're talking global and we're talking building the personalities as well as looking after the fighters. And that's going to be key because, you know, when you look around the world and you see what goes on TV, these reality shows, you know, Britain's Got Talent, I don't know, Cambodia's Got Talent, or, you know, Peru's Got Talent. The same principle goes for exploiting the services of individuals. We have to make them famous. But we can't just look and be famous in our street, in our backyard. We've got to be famous to a global market. And that's the plan now. But it all comes from, as I say, the structure in place. You need the best fighters. And you need to build the best fighters. I mean, the signing of James DeGale was a masterstroke in terms of promotional, in terms of tying in the next chapter of this soap opera. Why do people watch EastEnders every week, Coronation Street every week? They get used to the characters. They're comfortable. They're interested. They've got favourites. They've got ones they don't like. They've got a storyline. What we're doing on boxing is creating EastEnders with gloves on. We're giving them a storyline. We're giving them characters. Giving them something to talk about at work. Something to talk about at school. Something that they remember. At 7:30 on a Thursday, this is on. Someone once said to me, if you change Coronation Street's start time by 15 minutes, you'd lose 25% of your ratings, because people are used to it. So we need to build that familiarity in boxing, and that comes through exploiting commercial assets properly, but it also comes to building the personalities of the fighters. You know, if you look at darts and you think, where did that come from? It took 12 years. 12 years of hard work to make sure that we created this soap opera of tungsten tossers. And I don't mean tosser in a bad way, I mean in a good way. We've built the personalities which people can associate with, which means they want to watch them, and then you give them value for money and you give them an entertaining show. It's the package. What Eddie's got in boxing is the package. He's unbeatable. I don't ever see the fighters. No, I've never seen a fighter that's unbeatable. If Eddie keeps his basic principles right, lives the right life, makes the shows economically successful, which he will do, you need to be 25% of an accountant. You need to make sure you're running proper businesses. You need to make sure everybody knows you have integrity and credibility. So that's the start Eddie's got. But where he's taking it is in the world of social media, in the world of exploitation of images of personalities. That's the new level, and that's the level which makes me excited about where boxing as a sport can go in the next 5 years.
Okay, well listen, Barry Hearn, thanks for talking to IFL TV.
Always a pleasure, Coach.
As you were talking, I was picking out my headline quotes for the title of this video, and I think I found it with boxing is EastEnders with gloves on. That seems as a perfect way of putting it.
That'll be fine, mate. That sums up this.
The drama side of it is obviously what we focus on, if you like. Not focus on, but have a part to play in. So that's
everyone's a beneficiary, Cougs, even down to, you know, all your stuff that goes on. We all need to take this sport to a wider audience, and we have to look at ways of how we can make it wider, how we can make it more attractive, how we can make people tune in to boxing-related programs or shows that maybe didn't used to tune in. It's a journey we're all on, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Be a few tears along the way, of course, but I think it's going to be very successful.
We've just hit 20 million views actually the other day. So
okay, well, 20 million views. Okay, I used to get that with one fight on ITV. Congratulations, Cougs, you cracked.
We're on the internet and we got no money, Bazza, you know what I mean? So
listen, not having no money means you have to just be smarter. You have to think smart. Not having money is not necessarily a problem if you think smart, Cougs. I know lots of people with lots of money are idiots. Don't be one of them.
All right, we'll leave it there. All right. His son just walked in as we finished. All right, this is Cougan Cassius with Barry Hearn here for IFL TV. Thank you for watching.